everyone, it's Nicole. Welcome back to my channel and another somewhat paper crafting video tutorial. This is a mixed media tutorial. We are going to be taking an 8x10 canvas and creating a beautiful wall art or easel type of display piece using these 8x10 canvases that I picked up at my local discount store, or one of the canvases anyway. Now, these are pretty thin profile canvases, so I think it will work anywhere. I was inspired by the recent Celebrate release from Simon Says Stamp to create a wall art type of piece. We're going to start by painting up our canvas with a beautiful base with this speckled egg paint from Tim Holtz. And I am going to use my paintbrush and just give it an all over base. Now you will notice in the final photos that you saw at the beginning of the video as well as at the end, it doesn't really keep this color very long, but it is a good base. I think I was slightly off in my color choice. I knew I wanted to use some of the inks with the Flower Power stamps, stencils, and dies from the Celebrate release, as well as some of the new ink colors, and they ended up being a little bolder and a little less muted. So I did need to change kind of my background color. I think that's an important thing to note when working with anything, and in this case a mixed media piece. You can alter it without, getting rid of your original piece. Now I did take the paint around the edges of the canvas, and I am trying to give a pretty thin coat. I don't want this to take forever and a day to dry, and I don't really want to spend all of my time trying to dry it with a heat tool either. Sometimes I don't always love the results when using a heat tool, so I do try to use that somewhat sparingly. I will take the paint both directions, up and down, side to side, getting the most even application possible. Now, am I super concerned about maybe a few little stray white areas showing through? Absolutely not. That is because we're going to do tons of layering with this piece. If you have not tried a mixed media piece, and don't be scared by the words mixed media, that literally just means you're using several different mediums. We're probably doing that already with our card making. So don't be afraid of that at all, but it is such a fun thing to do. Now, in this instance, this piece actually matches my bedroom. So it would be a beautiful piece to put on like my bedside table, hang on the wall, maybe make a collage of pieces to put on the wall, just something beautiful that you could totally switch out your decor somewhere in your home. And I love that we can take our paper crafting supplies and really extend the life of them by not only creating amazing cards, scrapbook pages, layouts, junk journals, whatever tags, whatever the case may be, but we can also create home decor or, mixed media art pieces. So I am just going to continue painting this up. I will tell you, I did let this sit and dry probably for an hour. I worked on this over a weekend, and I literally was doing other things. I just was super inspired to have kind of a playtime type of piece. So while this is air drying, I went and did laundry, all of that stuff that we do. Now, it does still look a little bit shiny, but it is dry. Using some Tim Holtz opaque grit paste and a palette knife and the brand new dash and dot stencil, I am applying my paste through my stencil in random places over the canvas. I don't want to give an all over effect. We're adding texture. This is one of my favorite things to do, not only for cards, but in this case, a mixed media piece. So I'm just going to carefully pick it up and we're going to move it all over the canvas, adding in our opaque grit paste. Now, this is another component that isn't really going to maintain the white outline or the white appearance, because we are going to add more layers over the top of this. But what I want here is more texture and less of the color, if that makes sense. So I already knew that we would be adding more on top of this and that it would more than likely not retain that white paste. I just want the beautiful texture that this dash and dot provides. You can achieve this with a lot of different stencils that you maybe already have in your stash. I have actually used this stencil multiple times since I received it because it is a fantastic basic, and I love that. Now I am going to let that completely dry, and I am going to go clean up my tools and my stencil. And while that is drying, we're going to take the Flower Power stencil set and we're going to start stenciling these beautiful flowers. I love that you can stamp and stencil, you can stamp and color, you can stencil only, which is what I'm going to do. I wanted a little bit of a softer effect, and I knew that I would be crinkling these up. Something I haven't done in a hot minute. My OG scrapbookers, early 2000s, you guys let me know down in the comments. Do you remember when we used to wet our paper and crinkle it up to create embellishments for our scrapbook page layouts? That was my inspiration for this. So I knew I didn't necessarily need that defined outline for my flowers. Now, while I'm using this for a canvas, I really want to try this technique. And I actually did a version of this on a recent card that featured a lot of the same Celebrate Release products from Simon Says Stamp. So just kind of, keep that in mind, that this is really fun. Try it on your cards. I did these little teeny tiny flowers on this other card, and I will link to that at the end. Now I am using the new ink colors. As I mentioned, I wanted to do something different. I have made canvases in the past, but yeah, I didn't want to do rainbow. I wanted to show something other than rainbow. And I think maybe you guys want to as well. Now, for my rainbow lovers, Flower Power, rainbow it up. I think that would be absolutely amazing on a canvas. I just wanted to try something different. Now, if you're more, let's say you're more purples, or you want to do a very summery canvas, pinks, oranges, yellows, maybe a limey green, grab your favorite colors and have fun with it. I am really into these blues, and I will even tell you guys, I was very much inspired by my color palette by a fabric collection. I am a huge fan of Camille Ross Kelly and her company Thimble Blossoms, and I have been for years and years. If you also are a quilter or a fabric lover, and you might recognize that is where this color palette was inspired from. A lot of her more recent fabric collections have kind of featured more of these blues and greens. So inspiration can be found everywhere. Even if you are not a quilter or a sewist or sewist, I can't even talk. Don't be afraid to be inspired by that. Go take a gander at fabric. A lot of times it will give you an amazing idea for color combinations. Okay, my background has dried, and I could clearly see my background is not going to match those beautiful stenciled flowers. So I took some Winter Frost Distress Mica Stain, and I sprayed it over the surface of my canvas, and now I'm taking my paintbrush and just going back and forth each direction, really kind of trying to get a nice even application. Now I do think that beautiful base color of Speckled Egg did give us a nice base to work on. I don't know that the mica stain would have given it the same kind of coverage on its own. I have done splatter with mica stain on a canvas before, but I haven't necessarily completely changed the color of the canvas. And I will link down in the description to some past canvas projects that I have done here on my channel if you want to check those out. So now I am simply making sure that I am covering the sides and the front. We want it to all be the same color. And you'll notice that a lot of the grit paste is picking up the color. Some of the white is showing through. Some of it is kind of more covered. I love it. I honestly, at this point was when I was like, yes, this is exactly what I was hoping for. It's a really fun playtime project. These canvases are pretty inexpensive. You can pick them up at lots of hobby stores. There's lots of different sizes. And I literally just played. I didn't have an end goal in mind necessarily, other than I wanted to use the flowers. And then the butterflies were an addition after I kind of thought about it and thought I wanted to add something very simple, which we'll talk about when we kind of start pulling it all together. So now I've gone back and forth. I've actually added a few darker areas where I've kind of just built up extra color. Do you notice, see some of those streaks in the paint? That was very much on purpose because I didn't want it to look super uniform. I am grunging this up. As much as I grunge something, I like grunge in color for the most part. So I am pulling little bits of extra distress mica stain and just kind of leaving some streaks here and there. I am trying to blend those edges though into the rest of the canvas. I don't want it to look obvious, I guess. I don't want it to look kind of funny on the edges there. So we're just going to keep working with our paintbrush. And again, there's some streaks. This is going to be a step that needs to sit and dry. And I think I let this dry for at least an hour, maybe 2. I actually went and did some other things, talked to some friends. I mean, it was weekend, so I was doing completely random things. Okay, so I also continued to work on the elements for this canvas while it was drying. And that's going to include taking our die cuts, spritzing them with a little water, and crinkling them up for texture. Now, when you crinkle your die cuts up with water, and then flatten them back out. I didn't over flatten them, and that was on purpose because I want them to maintain that texture and dimension. You could crinkle them, pardon me, lay them, kind of press them back out flat, even put something heavy on top while they dry, and they're going to be crinkly but not maybe textured. Because this was a wall art piece, I thought I could probably get away with a little bit more texture for these because we're not trying to send them through the mail. I am continuing to create flowers. I tried to get as many of my flowers stenciled at once so I could die cut everything really with one pass or a couple passes, I suppose, because I do have multiple flowers. And I did all of the layering. It's very tone on tone. Again, very much inspired by blues and greens from that fabric collection I was talking about. And so you're going to see a lot of that here where I'm not really changing or adding a lot of extra colors. We're going to stick with this blue theme with a few green leaves. The only difference, or exceptions I should say, to that, I will be applying a little bit of white paste. And I will do a little gray stamping for text background on the canvas, and then some sterling foundry wax, which is kind of that silver foundry wax color. The green color I'm choosing for the leaves is Aspen. I thought it was perfect with these blues. I don't know about you guys, but I'm super excited when Simon Says Stamp comes out with new color trios in their releases, because it just fills in those holes in their collection and just gives a more complete color collection to their inks. I absolutely love it. Now, some of my favorite stenciled flowers here are going to end up being the teeny tiny little flowers. Teeny tiny little flowers, leaves, elements are perfect for filling in some of the larger areas. I will tell you as well that my original idea for my canvas was to fill the entire canvas with flowers. I had actually seen a piece somewhere online where they did it's probably craft paint, where they take the craft paint, it's kind of thick, and they place it on a canvas very thick, and then they let it sit and dry. I have no idea how long that would take to dry, but I am always fascinated by those videos. But they did these flowers, kind of scooping out the paint and putting it on a canvas, and filled the whole thing. And I was kind of inspired by that. But as I started to work on my background, I kind of quickly realized I don't want to cover the whole thing up, because I've spent quite a bit of time adding different layers and texture and all kinds of interesting things. And I definitely don't want to cover that all up with flowers. So I'm glad I didn't, but that's an idea. If you're, looking to make something, check, the internet, check Pinterest, check other crafts like quilting, just anywhere you can find fun color combinations and things like that. I'm always just inspired. I'm going to do several of these small flowers because I already know that those are going to be fantastic for just adding in all those little parts and pieces. Now, once you have them stenciled, go ahead and die cut them with the coordinating dies. I did do that off camera just to save a little bit of time. And then you can see I'm crinkling up the flowers. Now, at first I thought, can I crinkle them up without getting them wet? And it doesn't work that great. That's what I wanted to show you here. In fact, see how it tore? So my advice is to grab some sort of a mister, a mini mister, the distress sprayer. P.S. I did find them in my craft room for anyone who is wondering, but today I'm going to use this Spellbinders mister, which it is a really interesting mister because you spray it and then it just kind of gives you this fine mist for a few seconds. Now, that one tore. We're going to use it anyway. I'm a big fan of not reusing something or making another one if I don't have to. So let's lay out this. I'm just going to use this cloth here to help absorb some of the water, and I am going to spritz several of these. And I didn't have to keep spraying it. It sprays and it gives a fine mist. Then I'm going to pick each of them up and crinkle them in my fingers. Because they're wet, we're not going to have that tearing issue because I'm not saturating them. They just have a nice fine mist on them. So we're going to crinkle them up and then we're going to roll them back out and just set them aside to air dry. And again, this is another step that will take a little bit of time. Full disclosure, I did create this entire canvas in a single day, and I didn't work late into the night or anything like that. There's just a few steps along the way that need to really air dry. Now, adding water to this, I did feel like it doesn't necessarily make the ink run like it would a distress ink or a distress oxide, but I do feel like in a few of the places it maybe muted it even more just a little bit, but that's totally fine. So I'm going to continue kind of wetting, crinkling, all of that good stuff. So let's do these. You can see I dosed them nice with water, and then I'm just using my hand, crinkling them into a little ball and then carefully rolling them out and setting them aside. It's super fast. I could see creating an amazing rainbow canvas for a craft room with this for sure. And these flower power images are gorgeous. I love this. I love that you can color the stamped images with the stencils. You don't have to color them with markers if you don't want to. I know a lot of you love those layering stencils. Me too. And these are amazing. So again, once I have all of this, this is going to be where I'm going to set all of these aside to completely dry. Now, basically at this point, I can go back to my canvas and I can work a little bit more on the canvas while all of my different flowers and leaves and things are drying. And I do need to do that a little bit. So I want to add a little bit more texture. So what I did, my flowers are still wet at this point, but I did lay them out, kind of giving myself an idea. Do I want to layer them? I decided no, I don't. I don't feel like I need to. I want to add texture with some flat sequins, with some gemstones and things like that instead. and some butterflies. And this is really, I had got the butterflies out, but I wasn't completely committed to using them. Again, I've done butterfly canvases in the past. I wasn't sure I wanted to do it again, and I didn't. You're going to see how I die cut them instead from white cardstock, and we're even going to die cut them again from vellum for a fun layer. So now we're going to take a little white paint. After I've laid everything out, I can really I'm starting to get more of an idea. And this is a dry brush. So I am just picking up a little bit of ink. I'm just using it on my glass work surface here. And I am dry brushing the white paint, not completely everywhere all over the surface. Instead, I am giving it more, just little bits here and there to lighten up some of those areas. And just kind of going over it a few times, different places, being very, I'm not really going all over. It will slightly lighten certain areas, and I'm leaving some of the streaks. It's picking up some of the stenciled areas are picking up a little bit more of that white. I like that. I think it's amazing. Okay, so I love it. I think that's fantastic. And that was a little bit of the picket fence. Now I'm back to my spatter box. I've got some white gouache, and I'm going to just add a tiny bit of water to this. That's going to help it move a little better. And I've got a small paintbrush, and I'm going to tap all over my canvas. And this is going to give us white spatter. Lots of layers here. We have paint, we have grit paste, we have distress mica stain, we have more paint, we have gouache. We're also going to have some stamping and some foundry wax. I really went all out on this background. Now, I think you could even go in with letters. You could write a quote on top of this. And then if you have die cut that, it would be amazing. Here is a step that I did actually dry with my heat tool. So I grabbed my heat tool and I am drying that canvas, or drying that gouache on the canvas. Now, some of the watered down gouache, it's going to lighten quite a bit, but I love it. I love this, the splatter all over. I love all those little white flecks. I think it looks amazing. And I just want to mostly dry this because I do want to stamp my text stamp over the background. And I'm moving my heat tool often. I don't want anything to bubble up. I don't know if it would or not, but that's part of the reason that I don't generally love to use my heat tool too often with these kinds of projects, because I'm always afraid I'll mess it up. Air drying for the win. Okay, that looks really beautiful. I love the background. I love how imperfect it is. It's honestly super pretty, just like this. Okay, now it is time to add a little text background stamping. I did think about this for a while before going ahead and doing it. I wasn't sure if I wanted to or not, but ultimately I decided, yes, of course I do. And I do this a lot of times with my cards as well. I love a little text. So I opted to take the graphite archival ink and this old letter background stamp from Simon Says Stamp. And I'm not going to put it, I mean, it's not really, I don't have an acrylic block this is going to fit on. So I'm inking up portions of it, most of it. And I'm not really going to ink it up again. And I'm going to just take my stamp, lay it on the canvas, and press it in certain areas. Perfection is not what I'm going for here at all. I am going for some subtle text all over the background. Full disclosure, I had intended to use maybe a blue archival ink, and I just couldn't settle on one of them, and I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I went with this graphite gray. I think that is the perfect color, and it really, as it dries, I am going to grab the heat tool for this step too. It is going to kind of fade into the background a little bit. You definitely see it, but it is just not so, you know, in your face we don't want it in your face. We want it to be very muted and very soft. So just heating that up a little bit. And at this point, our background, other than the foundry wax, which I want to be all over everything, that includes my flowers, we're done. We're going to start putting it all together here in just a minute. One thing about the flowers, if I had realized I wanted to do this, I probably would have waited. I did put all of my flowers in the spatter box. You can see they've got white gouache spatter all over them. I did go ahead and spatter those with the white gouache. I did do that off camera, but I wanted to mention it. I felt like they were a little too, even though they're all crinkly and textured, they were still just a little too perfect for our very grungy background. Okay, now I opted to keep my butterflies pure white for this, and I'm glad. I think they really pop and are super beautiful. That flower that had the tear in it that I mentioned I wasn't going to get rid of, I can disguise that with a butterfly. That had kind of been my intention when I opted not to, or I could have even, layered a flower or something if I needed to there. I always like to kind of lay my flowers out. This is going to likely change as I start assembling and gluing everything down in place, but starting with a main idea is what I like to do here. So I want to just kind of lay it all out, see what I like. That is looking super beautiful. Let's talk about gluing elements down. You can use whatever glue you like. I have found when I'm working with a canvas project, honestly, I love hot glue. It dries quick. It dries nice and secure. It's not like a liquid glue. I have found I've tried liquid glues in the past and I end up being unhappy because, the glue takes forever to dry and things maybe slip and slide around. That is not going to be an issue with the hot glue gun. I like the SureBonder. There's the hot glue gun. There's a mini version. There's like a little pen, a little teeny tiny detailer version. I have them all. Highly recommend them, and you can get them right at Simon Says Stamp or your favorite craft store. So I have everything laid out and I am simply filling it in. Adding a little bit of glue and then just kind of pressing them down. See how they curl up and aren't laying flat on the canvas? I think that is so much more interesting than flat in this case. We have all of this amazing texture. We definitely don't want to lose it. I did opt to only do 2 butterflies. I will use the large and the small. And to glue them down so that the wings still look like they're taking flight, I like to only put the glue right in the body of the butterfly and leave the wings free. So I kind of fold that butterfly in half and then I glue it down. I guess I haven't done that part yet. We're just going to go ahead and I am using liquid glue to glue anything onto the paper. So I will even use the liquid glue for some of the sequins scattered throughout. And it did end up working out pretty good, mostly because I was afraid too much hot glue would come out, and I let this sit and dry overnight. But I am using some of these new Dusk sequins from Simon Says Stamp for most of the kind of blue color sequins. We're also going to use some Stardust, I believe, and then some clear Pawsitively dazzling gems. All embellishments from Simon Says Stamp. They're so beautiful. Amazing additions. I am using the triangle tray to kind of house and hold on to my embellishments while I pick them up and put them in place with the embellishment wand. Let's go ahead and glue that butterfly down, right? Or maybe I didn't. Maybe I went ahead and finished my embellishments first. Oh, I just moved it, making sure. I love adding all of the little sparkle details. It's just so pretty. Now, I didn't add any words or text other than that background old letter text that we stamped that's more of a background element, but you could, if you wanted to, you could add a quote to this. You could add a stamped quote to this. Lots and lots of ways to kind of personalize it to your own personal taste. So I'm adding a few more here and there. This is always the part that takes maybe the most, I mean, it probably doesn't take the most time, but finishing it up and trying to find the right balance of not too many embellishments, but just enough. And these are beautiful with the new ink colors. So here, instead of stenciling and die cutting more flowers, I did opt to just fill in some little areas with my sequins. So I'm gluing these directly to the canvas. And that's something I like to do on my cards as well. I like how it just kind of fills in and makes it look very natural. Almost like you've kind of spilled them out and that's where they ended up. I love that kind of look. We'll do a few more and then we're going to glue these butterflies down. Let's talk about the magic of vellum. Vellum is one of my favorite things. And in this case, I love the white of the butterflies, but I wanted to soften them even more. To do that, I did die cut them again. This is called the Whirl Butterflies Wafer dies, and it has this amazing texture to it, as you can see. So the butterflies already have super texture to them. Die cutting it out of vellum just softens, I guess if you want to call it that, the white, but it also adds a layer to it. So our butterflies are going to have an amazing layer to them. And I love that about it. We're going to disguise the glue under the vellum layer by using some gems. So I did hot glue my butterflies down. You can see how they're nice and secure, but how the wings are popped up. And we have added a few additional embellishments. Let's do that before the foundry wax is the very last thing I'm going to do today because I want that spatter all over my flowers, all over the canvas, all over the butterflies. I want little silver specks. If you haven't played with foundry wax, I have done several videos since this came out a year and a half or so ago. And I've done it in lots of different ways. And I will tell you that I think that the spatter effect is my favorite. I just love it. You definitely have to heat it. So this is going to be a step where we use our heat tool to heat set it, but it's going to give us beautiful silvery shine wherever you heat it. If you don't heat it, you do run the chance of it wiping off or smearing. So we are going to heat set it and it's going to be amazing. Okay, those are some gems. I did opt to change up some of my gems. So I use those clear gems all over in the center of those flowers. And now we're going to get our spatter box again, my most used tool, I swear. And I've got the foundry wax. I'm going to put a little bit in my box. I know it's kind of out of camera, and I have my small paintbrush, and we're going to start spattering up the entire thing, making sure to hit the flowers, making sure to hit the butterflies and the background canvas all over everything. You can see it, but it's not really showing its beauty as of yet. We're going to take our heat tool, and once I heat this, that is when you're going to see the beautiful silver shine. So you're going to see how the color changes there. I want to make sure that I go everywhere, not forgetting any part of this canvas with my heat tool. Absolutely so much fun. This was an amazing weekend project. If you guys are inspired to try a canvas art, I would love for you guys to tag me on social media. Let me know. It is something fun, something kind of out of the box, if you will, to do. And I hope you guys love it. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this beautiful mixed media canvas project. The supplies I used to create my canvas are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining me today for another paper crafting tutorial. I love being able to share with this incredible community of crafters. I want to give a huge shout out and special thank you to my amazing Patreon members. If you're interested in joining Patreon, please click the link in the description underneath the video here on YouTube. Patreon is a private community where you can support more of what I do. There is exclusive content, information, and behind-the-scenes content. Top-tier members will receive a handmade birthday card during your birthday month, access to D-Stash, and monthly exclusive lives, plus so much more. We would love to have you join our growing community. Please be sure to subscribe to my channel, click that like button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to always be notified when I have a new video. Thanks for watching!